what does failure look like? I don't know. I don't know what failure looks like as an artist. I find that's such a weird thing for people to be able to assess for other people too. You know what I'm saying? Like they'll go, just look at that work. You got to give them permission to fail. I'm like, I don't think they fail. You know, I just speaking for myself. I don't feel like I fail. You know, because the putting the art up is already the win. That's the win for me. I said something.
That's the success.
People. That is the success. That is always the success. The greatest success is when I said what I was trying to say the way I really meant it.
Both Nick and Dominique are quite the hyphenates themselves. And so it's a sort of a perfect time and place for us to all kind of gather together and talk about the work.
Going into the industry, and when you got out of school, what was your mission as a storyteller?
My first play was out of like, so we're just not gonna have any black plays here? Okay, great. Well, I'm gonna have to do something about that because I need to act, you know, and we're not doing a lot of non-traditional casting and things like that. So I needed to work. So I was like, make the work thyself. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did. And then the second, but that went over like, you know, that was bananas at school. And I was, you know, that's when I figured out the hustler in me. Where I was going around like getting people to come to see the show. It was a student-run theater, and I was just getting people in there however I could. You know, at the very first, this is before I knew the word. I always say, I didn't know the word no. I never even assumed it would happen. So I was like, why would anybody tell me no? So I was, I didn't even, you know what I mean? Naivete. I didn't know that word. So we had to submit like a proposal for our like student-run theater, and but like at the top of the year, before that proposal was even sent, and definitely before I got my yes, I was already walking around campus at Welcome Week, like, hi, come see the first black show that's gonna be in the theater, and like, you know, since we all been in school, and like, come see the show and come see my show, and like, I was telling everybody, come see my show. They didn't have no dates, and I realized, and I mean, I remember there was a colleague of mine, we are friends now, but we weren't. We were just, you know, in school together then. And I had cast her, and I was like, here's my play, here, read it. This is your part, you know. And I was talking about it so much that I remember one day she said, you know, they do turn them down. They do say no sometimes. And I was like, that was strike one. She didn't end up doing the play. I ended up having to replace her, but not because of that. But that was the beginning of why I had to replace her, actually. And she didn't believe with me, you know? And I'm like, I'm not gonna convince you to believe in the dream I believe in. If you're not with it, you're not my tribe, let's move on, you know? And so, because there's always gonna be somebody that wants to do it and somebody that doesn't. And we kind of overlook, we think we need the people that don't want us, and then we don't never need those people, you know? We need the people that see the same thing that we see, or that have the same, at least core value, you know? And that is in alignment, right? So I ended up doing that. So when I came out of school, you know, I was like, playwright had happened by happenstance while I was in school. I was still thinking, you know, I will graduate, I will come to New York, Spike Lee would hear that I got here, and be like, man, I've never seen somebody so talented in my life, not with all the amazing people I've already worked with, Denzel and whoever else, be damned, right? And that didn't happen. But what did happen was I got out here, and I just thought I needed to just find my way in. I thought I was looking for something else, right? You know, so I tried to do everything. I have this play. Well, full-length plays are hard. We have 10-minute play festivals. Okay, I wrote a 10-minute play. We also have one-act festivals. I'm gonna write a one-act, and I'm gonna try to get in everything I can, So I was doing festivals. I haven't been over here. Funny enough, when I got out over here, I haven't been to this like area. I used to hang out at Slate and like all the time. I used to hang out over here, like Taj and all these places. And that's why, because I used to, developing artists is 2 blocks away. And Center Stage, New York, I think it's called Center Stage still. But that was a place that I used to teach at. I used to do the festivals there. I had a theater company, a rogue theater company me and one of my friends started. That didn't do, we did like one show and was like, okay, we don't like each other, let's keep moving, But we love each other, we just didn't like each other. And, but like we kept, finding, I have done like 101 things. When I look back, I'm like, oh my God. I was over here, I was over there, I was doing this. I was making really, really bad films, like amazingly wonderful bad films. And my apartment is so bad, like somebody's falling out we put somebody out the window and like you go to the camera to the window and like the screen is here. But we're like, whatever, we like trying to, edit with like no software, no money, no nothing, It's like, things like tape recorders, things y'all probably don't know about, so we had to like cut it together ourselves and like, it's like DJing by ear instead of like doing it from your like, Spotify. And so it just became like I realized my mission was to just be trying to work, do what I can, however I can, and get in the door. Somewhere like 10 years into that, I started to feel like I had started teaching and being a teaching artist at NYU. Mm-hmm. That's where I was a part of creative arts team that was in residency at NYU. And then we moved to CUNY, to City University of New York. But while I was there at NYU, we could take free classes at this job. We could take free classes. So at night, I was like, I'm taking that film class, I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna do that, And, but my whole task was get fed, do the thing. And when I worked at Creative Arts Team for so long, I was starting to be a teaching artist, like a legit teaching artist, and like really good at what I did. But like so good that I kept doing it. And I was really, that was becoming a trade of mine. And then I looked up one year, and I was like, I have not written one thing this whole year. And this is me being a spoken word artist. I used to slam, and I used to slam in Harlem. I used to like just be everywhere. And I looked up and I realized I hadn't written. And I was like, I didn't come out to New York to be a teacher, I love teaching. I just didn't come out to New York to be a teacher. So I was like, I have to try to do the thing that I came out here to do. I got to give that like my full go for a minute. And I will always be able to teach again. Because I don't ever look at teaching. Sometimes people look at that, teachers not included in here, but people do look at teaching like somehow that you have like given up on the craft. As opposed to like, you are so generous inside your craft that you're gonna impart some to the next gen, And so the stigma of being stuck in teaching, and even though we weren't teaching like acting students, we were teaching like, I'm like in Rikers, teaching students, about like how to, not be in a violent world. Like we're teaching anti-violence curriculum, But nonetheless, my mission changed later. And I started to realize as an artist, there was that moment that I kind of woke up as an artist and said, I'm not good with just being a writer. I'm not good with just being a art. So the art itself isn't enough for me. There has to be action and social impact connected to the art because it's not good enough for me, So then my mission now as an artist is I believe in disruption and question more than answer, So I believe in sitting with questions that I have and now leading the work to ask those questions to a broader group of folks so that we could collectively maybe find the answer. And that is to create not comfort. I'm not trying to intentionally create discomfort. What I'm trying to do is instill dialogue and change in some kind of way. And the only way that I know to do that is to arrest the mind like my mind has been arrested about things. So something that bothers me, now I need to be on everybody's mind for like 5 minutes. I need us all to be, this one kept me up at night, now I need everybody to be up at night with this for a minute to help me figure this out, you know? And so that is, for me as an artist, I guess the mission is now be unafraid of discomfort, to disrupt complacency, and to, it has always been to illuminate the most hidden corners. Yeah.
Beautiful. Do you feel like in that spirit of disruption, that has been, have you been comfortable with the risk that's associated with that disruption? Or does that feel like that's something you embrace?
That's a good question. Okay, so again, the person that didn't know had no idea that there was a no attached to anything, didn't even see risk. You know what I mean? I didn't feel like I was taking a risk. I felt like I was just doing something that was second nature. Trying to get people to come see my show it didn't feel like a hard thing, or didn't feel like a thing. It just felt like that's what you do, right? I got a show, people need to know about it, let me go tell them. And I think along the way, when I started to learn the no, you know, you hear the no, you start to believe the no. You start to like, you know, now you don't walk through that door with as open a spirit as you did before, because now you're like, oh, I heard no. They might tell me no, you know? But when you don't have the no, there's no, you're not risking anything because there's no fail, because you're going to get a yes. You know what I mean? I think it's taken a while for me to get back to the, like, I don't even know if it's the expectation of the yes anymore, because I've seen the world. But I do know how not to be stopped by the no. Or as I once heard Tanya Pinkins say, clearly when you say no, clearly that's a no for you. That's not a no for me, you know what I mean? You're just not my yes, like I found my yes, you know? So yeah, I mean, but and I guess there is risk with disruption, although, I don't know. I mean, there's risk in walking down the street. So I don't know. I don't know.
We're in the business of risk.
Yeah, we're in the business of risk. I don't know. I mean, there's risk with, I'm always shocked, frankly, when, you know, for instance, like there's a risk with like getting super vulnerable and emotional on stage or on film or on, you know, on screen somewhere. And I'm like, isn't that the whole reason we do this? It's like, I'm shocked when I have to like convince an artist to like trust the thing enough to get vulnerable. I'm like, I lead with my vulnerability. Like I'm in art because I need, you know, I need some place to catch it, really. And so I'm always surprised that there's a resistance to that. And I think that's just because that's the people that have already heard no. You know, they're resisting the like bearing of the self because they already got something else in their head that I didn't already have, you know? Yeah.
It's wonderful to be reminded of that, you know, we got into this to thrive on taking risks or to thrive on being seen. Why do we allow ourselves to close off, you know?
And I'm not gaslighting that close off. Something's happened to make that happen, you know, to make that not feel safe, right? You know? But I guess I just, like I remember I was at a Morehouse or Spelman. I was at one of those places. It was a guys at Spelman, maybe it was a Spelman, you know? But they were doing it was acting students and they had read some of my work. And one of the students came up to me afterwards, it was a guy, and he said, you know, I've been told, you know, I've been studying, I've been like, you know, having to learn your work for class and stuff. And like, I think one of the things I'm like still, you know, getting notes on or getting, you know, one of his like, you know, hurdles to climb or jump in his class is that he's been told he has to, you know, try to get more vulnerable inside the character, right? You know? And I'm like, okay, I hear that, you know? I was like, just so you know, as an actor, as a writer, I bled out when I wrote that. I mean, that cost me a lot, man. It cost me a lot to put that on that page. So if you take it and pick up the mantle and you don't get vulnerable, then that's not really fair. Because I bled out, now your turn. You know what I mean? And that's how it is, you know, that's how I look at the writing exchange between writer and actor. Okay, I did this, I'm bare my damn soul, your turn. Let's do it together, right? Because like, otherwise my soul starts shrinking. you know, when I feel like I wrote that and they don't want to do it for real, you know, like I feel like, oh man, that's not fair, you know. Yeah, that said, you know, it's harder to be, sometimes, maybe in the mind, harder to be on, what I always call actors is the front lines, you know? This is the people that's on the front lines of your work. So protect them, care for them. They on the front lines of the work, you know? But on the same tip, and this is in theater, but it's not just in theater, where I also hear the mantra of the writer is the only person that can't walk away. You know, you could be like, oh, I didn't really like that show or that play. And they be like, well, that's just terrible writing. You know, you can walk away. You know, I mean, I've seen actors did it to like television show writers a lot. It's just, you know, I couldn't do my best because there's bad writers, you know. And I'm like, damn, man. Like, everybody's an artist here, not just the actor. And everybody's an artist here, not just the writer, right? Like, I've heard people say some things to writers that they would never want said to them as actors. I've heard some things said to directors or that they would never want said to them as writers, right? You know, so like, I think there's also like, we forget everybody's an artist. Everybody's, you know, as Badu has shared with us, everybody's an artist, everybody's sensitive about their shit. You know, so like, if you can remember that everybody in your wake is an artist and they're all fragile, then we can, take better care of each other when we're making a thing, and hopefully make that thing with as little harm as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Leading with a spirit of generosity.
Yeah.
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 What do you think you've learned about yourself through your work? How has that evolved in time?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still learning. Like, I'm still learning, I guess, about myself and what I'm made of, you know. With plays, I feel like I've gotten real clear, you know. That's where I have the most visibility, you know. I have worked in television, I work in film, I have a good, I feel like I got a good thing going there, but, you know, I'm by no means, nobody's rolling out no red carpet for me there. But I have a good thing going. People know me, or I work, or I get work if I need to. But I feel like what I have learned from playmaking, what I think I know about myself, gets changed. That gets thrown back in my face, you know. I think I know this. I think I'm real clear about this, you know. And then the next show I have, I'm like, why am I stressing out? You know, like, why am I stressing out? I already know how this goes, you know. Like, why? I already made up rules about all this stuff. Like, why am I still stressing out about this stuff, you know? But also, I remember last year I was working on my musical, the Soul Train musical. And we were about to go into the Bay, so we were like in a development workshop before we go do our like out of town tryout in the Bay, which I'm familiar with. I've done that before, you know, from my other musical. So we're out there, and before we go out there, I'm like trying to get the script right with the director, and you know, trying to just get these moments right in this workshop before we have to go and start a very aggressive, like, you know, rehearsal process to put this musical up, which is like monstrous, really. It's like massive and mega. And I remember talking to one of she was my associate on the show. And she was like, I was like this, and I was talking to her like maybe 1 a.m. one night. I was trying to figure out something before we go into rehearsal and stuff. I was like, I gotta change these lines. This is our last day. I got to get this before we go into the thing. And I was working my head over this, and she goes, I just want you not to have to, I don't want you to have to go through this in the Bay. Like, she said something like, I don't want you to be so stressed, or I don't want this to, I just want you to be able to enjoy it and not stress or not whatever. And I was like, what are you receiving as stress? Because, yeah, I'm stressed. But, like, what are you receiving from me as stress? You know, she's like, you're just up and you're thinking. I was like, yeah, that's my passion. That's not going nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, that's my passion. I don't think I can, like, you can't take away, like, my care, right? So some of the stress, I could try to manage my stress. That's like with my therapist. That's not really with her. You know what I mean? But like I could try to manage the stress while I do this thing that I care so much about, you know, and try to relieve like myself of like all the pressure. But I'm never gonna like not be 10 toes down in it and figuring stuff out, because that's the passion. That's the thing that makes me, literally, that drives me as an artist, you know? So I was like, I think you're misreading my passion right now for like unhappiness or stress. Like I'm figuring something out. It's a puzzle, so it's gonna mess my brain up until I figure that out, right? But like part of my passion is I got to figure this thing out, you know. And I don't know, you know, I see a shift happening right now in the multiple fields that I'm working in. And I don't really know how I feel about it. Like I see stuff happening and I'm like, okay, I don't want nobody up here to have to be like thinking about nothing. If you have a power and the ability to be like at 2 a.m, I'm tapping out. You know what I mean? I think that's a good thing probably. You know what I mean? that's a good thing. But if it's always like at 8 o'clock, I am never and I am done because that's my time and I don't have no other time to give to that. I'm like, the passion can't take you to 9 o'clock. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because like when you driving through something, does it want to give a little bit more than like the average? And I'm not saying like I respect the care management of what I see kind of happening across all fields, and I definitely see it happening in theater. But I'm like, when something is on, like this is the thing we making. If we don't put a little bit some extra elbow grease, are we cool with that? Not having like we just cool with that going out there a little disfigured? We could just fix their ear and it, you know what I mean? It might look symmetrical, I don't know. You know what I mean? But if we okay, so I guess I'm of two minds. On one mind, I'm like, all right, maybe we make some disfigured art, you know what I'm saying? And like, okay, give yourself permission to make some disfigured art, you know what I mean? But also, if that disfigured art compromises your artistic integrity or the thing you were intending to do, maybe that's the question I might have about it, right? Like, relieve yourself of the perfectionism, but not of doing your best. And I don't know where those two things, you know, how we define those two different things. But that's what I feel like I'm shifting toward, because I don't want to be the tortured artist. I was listening to all kind of like meditations and stuff out in the Bay, like and the one that really stuck with me was moments. It was something like it's the Tao Te Ching, right? And it was one of the things was the closer. It says something like the moments before a nervous breakdown is believing in your own importance too much. And I was like, oh shit, stop. I need to back up because I don't want to hit nervous breakdowns. So I need to back up and let's think about how important is the shit I'm actually doing. Maybe it's not that important. You know what I mean? You feel like, oh, it's so important to have for this community and for these voices. And I listen to, like, when I talk to a lot of younger artists and like whatever communities they represent, especially any ones that are in the margins, you know, whether it's from the gender identity perspective or their cultural, racial perspective, whatever. But like, you know, I have to do this for these people. And I'm like, oh, that's important. Gonna get you probably your quarter life crisis is coming up. You know what I'm saying? Like you rounding the corner, you know, because it's like what you think you're gonna do for all them people, you know what I mean? Like can you start with what you're gonna do for you, you know, instead of like I got to take this for all the team, you know, and I'm like, God bless the team.
What do you do since you are the engine and the passion behind your writing, or as the director or producing? How do you bring people aboard to your projects so that your process with them, how do you pick people? Who do you work with? How does that work? Because I think that seems to be
the vibe.
Incredibly important given the duality of what's going on of managing ourselves, as you said, versus how we're supposed to work within certain hours or certain.
I'm trying to pick better. I'm trying to pick better. You know, I'm trying to be able to assess things like so the number one thing, I know who I deeply want to work with. When I could tell an artist, and this is whether it's an actor, whether it's a fellow director, whether it's a whomever, whatever category they're in, when they're driven by the art, right? Like when they're talking about the art and not the self, you know? When I see them, like, people that I know just get passionate about art, right? Because I think, passionate about stories. Like, I find myself to be a storyteller, you know? Like, I am a storyteller who tells stories for the stage, I tell stories for the screen, I like to tell stories. I tell stories, for books, for people to read. But I just like to tell stories, and I'm excited to work with storytellers, people that just love a good story. And when I feel like I'm with people that are centering the self, and I don't always know that until I'm in it, And then I go, oh man, didn't see the signs of this abusive relationship. I did not see the warning signs, and I'm trying to catch the warning signs. Not just for actors. I do this for studios, I do this for like producers. I'm like, I was like, what is the sign? What is the sign that they're just, how do I know what I'm getting into a relationship that's positive? Nick and I are working together, on some things, and it's just positive, and it has felt positive from the beginning. It is also brought to us both by a very positive friend, and that mutual friend, I feel like always leads with like, this is a very gifted actor. I mean, one of my favorite, and a very working. I don't know if he's working the way he wants to be working, but he's working in the ways I admire. And just a really could be a lot of things. The ego could be all over him, and it just isn't. It never was. And I started that relationship with that actor when we were working on a play together. I just liked their acting. I didn't know what their like vibe was, but I liked their acting. And then as I got to working with them I'm like, okay, this is an actor that I want in my canon of work. I want to work with this actor forever because I like who this actor is as an artist, And I don't know, so I don't always know that there are other people that I'm like, that was harmful. I'm not saying, I'm not like I'm not a punisher. Like, you know what I mean? I don't feel like, oh, I didn't have a great experience with somebody, so they are like dead to me. That's not how that goes. I just know if I'm seeking light in a process, that's probably not where I'm starting. You know what I mean? I'm gonna start over here. I'm gonna have to go there. I'm not gonna kill anybody's whole life because they just didn't have a good process. But I'm if I'm being honest and raw, I gotta go where my spirit feels good too. And so I try to find where that light is, and I don't always know what that is. I don't know if I'm real clear about it, but I can just tell when they're talking to me about, it's the conversation we have around the art that tells me more than the art itself.
I also feel like people are actively seeking out positive, genuine people now in terms of how they build their teams because people have had so many bad experiences on set,
trauma
in plays,
it's real.
with just awful people. And I think it's real currency in some ways to be genuinely kind. It goes a long way.
Yeah.
How would you define, because you've had your plays performed across the world, and you've really just started in many ways, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So like, what do you define as success, and what would you define as failure for you?
That's a good question because people say, you gotta be free to fail. I resisted that for so long because I just, like, if I do a play, if I do a play, you just saw a play that I just did. And your words to me are like, and I just want you to have permission to fail. Like, you think I failed? You know what I mean? Like, I'm already resisting, I'm like, what you mean fail? You know what I'm saying? And I feel like when we say free to fail, the word fail has such a stigma around it anyway. I don't know, the failing for me, I mean, it's gonna sound like very Hallmark, you know what I mean? But failing for me is just not trying. Or when I really do feel like a failure, and that's not often, but I do feel like disappointed, and I feel like I failed at that. When I just didn't honor myself, I wasn't true to me. I was not true. That's not how I really felt. And somehow I let myself stay in a space that I did not feel good in. That's when I feel like I failed. Because I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I do that to me? I failed me, But the art, what does failure look like? I don't know. I don't know what failure looks like as an artist. I find that's such a weird thing for people to be able to assess for other people too. You know what I'm saying? Like they'll go, just look at that work. You got to give them permission to fail. I'm like, I don't think they fail. You know, I just speaking for myself. I don't feel like I fail. You know, because the putting the art up is already the win. That's the win for me. I said something to some people. That is the success. That is always the success. The greatest success is when I said what I was trying to say the way I really meant it. Because that's a hard thing to do as an artist, to give that moment in performance, to say that thing that I intended to do. Because many times you do, you know, I'm working with actors now, they're like, you know, it's like, I feel like I'm getting the same note over and over again. I feel like I'm doing this and y'all not getting it so high. What's the, and then we're like, well, then we're lost in translation. Because it's not that you're not doing something. It's just that me and the director are having one experience and you're having an internal experience, you know. So I'm not saying you're not trying to do it. I'm saying it's not reading. And why isn't it reading? And, you know, one of the ways in which I say you're having a conversation about emotionality and I'm having a conversation about technicality and language, right? So, like, we having two different conversations. You're like, I didn't say you got to feel sad or happy every time you're doing this line. I'm saying the line itself has an intention. You know? So you will not get lost if you stay on the line. If you try to emote before you get to the line, that's going. You're right. She's like, I can't manufacture emotion. I'm like, and nobody's asking you to. I'm asking you to use the language to tell you what's happening right now. And I think you think this language is saying this, and I'm telling you this language is actually doing that. You know what I mean? And so, like, if you know the map, then we can maybe get on the same page, even if you don't feel it, because you ain't gonna feel it. I mean, especially on theater, you gotta do it 100 times. And these are, you know, I'm working with actors. In the past several processes I've been in, I've worked with actors who are from TV or from film. They were theater people, but they went away and now they're back. And it's like, okay, this is how you ride a bike. You know what I mean? 1 foot for, you know what I'm saying? It's not quite that, but it is a little bit like, you know, I was sharing this when we were in the back. I was like, it gets real, you know, once you go from theater to film, and your life get real internal and quiet, and it's like the camera's right there. You can just have this intimate moment that nobody in the back of a damn theater is feeling right now. You know what I'm saying? They cannot hear your foot. You know, and I had this, I remember one actor, I was like, and she was like, I just, you know, I feel like I'm being fake. And I was like, yeah, that's the craft of theater. You got to find the truth in being very big and being loud and hitting the back of that house. With truth, I don't want you to be fake and you don't want to be fake. Being loud is not being fake. You know, but he's right here. Why am I talking like this to him? He's right here, you know? You like that's what this mechanism needs. You gotta find truth in that loudness, just like when you go on a film, and now you gotta bring it down, 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 and fit it in this little lens. You know what I mean? And I think so we get lost. We have to find translation again to like how do we get back on the same page as story. I also find in film and television, this is me having auditioned many actors for film and television when I was writing on Shameless, you know. Those are fun times. Those were fun times, you know. And so when we were auditioning all these actors, you know, the choices they make would be very different. And how much can you do? They come in with like, this is the audition. You know, it's like, is that order number 1 or number 2? And that'd be it. Yes. You'd be like, man, I ain't learning nothing from that. You know? But as we're watching it and they keep coming in, you know, you're like, oh no, that order number 1, number 2 was way better than that order number 1, number 2. You know, and not just because of the commitment or the whatever or the, you know, and so having they have so much less to work with, you know, so much, most of the time in film and television in particular, you're gonna have a lot less to work with. You rarely gonna get, you know, the like Heisenberg scene or something. You know what I mean? You're about to get like, you're not getting Walter White. You're going to get like, you know, the person that walked into the shop today and said, you know, how much are these? Right? And so trying to find out like how to make that as meaningful as like these big monologues you get to come in with theater. It's like, the truth part of it is an interesting thing. So anyway, I just say all that to say, I think we was talking about failure. But I don't know what I don't know. To me, the fail is just it's just not doing it. Or it's like selling yourself out is a big failure to me. You know? And I don't know what that means to people, but you know when you sold yourself out, it feels yucky. Mm-hmm. And that feels like a fail. Mm-hmm. Not one that you can't come back from, but that definitely feels like a fail. And I have felt that. Yeah. I have felt that.
I just have one more question, and then I want to hear from y'all. But this question comes from this young artist in the front row. What do you want to learn from this generation of new artists coming onto the scene?
Oh, what do I want to learn from this generation? That's a beautiful question. So when I was working with Lin-Manuel Miranda, good name drop. Great name, right? It's a good one, right? Lin and I used to work together, creative arts team, and we've been out in the classes together. Yeah, well, I'm not gonna bring it up, but we've been out, you know, in like elementary schools, you know, like just giving lessons to just. I've been acting with Lin. I have acted with Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I remember we would be talking about the plays we were working on at the time. Mine was my play, Follow Me to Nelly, which was like my first equity-produced play at Premier Stages. And he was working on his show at the time. And you know, his was called, it was about like gentrification, like in the Bronx, and that was in the Heights, right? So, but as he's talking about his show, and I'm talking about mine, and you know, I was like, what do you do with writer's block? You know, like how do you stop editing yourself? And he was like, oh, and he said the most simple thing to me. He was like, oh, you just gotta write your way through it. I was like, that seems, I mean, would they pay you for this? You know what I mean?